After wallowing in silliness last episode, Miami Vice leans into its grim and serious side with vastly improved results. The Home Invaders was written by Chuck Adamson and directed by Abel Ferrara, who is the filmmaker behind such works as King of New York and Bad Lieutenant. Ferrara's films are known for being dark, violent, and sordid, and you can see that influence on this episode, which, without ever becoming salacious, has some pretty grim and brutal undertones, even though the bulk of the violence is not shown on screen. The Vice detectives are called into the office at 3 a.m. for an emergency investigation into a string of brutal home invasions in which 4 masked assailants rob the homes of valuables while brutally torturing the occupants for kicks. Everyone is in attendance at this meeting, apart from Tubbs, who is off in New York visiting Valerie because Philip Michael Thomas injured himself while filming The Maze a couple episodes back and thus was out of commission. All available detectives from all departments, Vice included, are joining forces with the robbery division for this case. Heading up the investigation is Crockett's former mentor, Lieutenant Malone, played by Jack Kehoe, who you've seen in Serpico and The Untouchables. Malone immediately clashes with Castillo, who, in his own quiet and unassuming, yet frighteningly intimidating manner, is deeply critical of the slapdash way Malone has handled the investigation thus far. In Tubbs's absence, Crockett pairs up with Castillo, and they conduct a great deal of excellent and meticulous police work. Castillo sifts through files while Crockett hits the streets, questioning victims and grilling informants. Castillo continues to be justly critical of the work Malone's been doing on the case, which puts Crockett in the awkward position of having to defend his past and present superiors to each other. As a result of Castillo forcing everyone to work harder and better, the detectives discover that all the victims of the home invasions had one thing in common: they all visited the same hair salon. Gina hits the salon, posing as a prospective customer, and scopes out the place. The scene is scored to Sheila E.'s The Glamorous Life, which is the only song used in this episode apart from some Jan Hammer instrumental pieces. The salon's valet, Pete, is unusually chatty and solicitous, which Gina finds fishy. Pete, who indeed is one of the Home Invaders, is played by smoking hot heartthrob Esai Morales, known for La Bamba and the Battlestar Galactica prequel series Caprica, in which he played the father to Edward James Olmos's Battlestar Galactica character, which is sort of fun to consider. Morales will also be playing the sleazy supervillain Deathstroke on the upcoming second season of DC Universe's Titans, which is a potentially brilliant bit of casting. I feel strangely emotionally invested in seeing how that turns out. A rash of similar home invasions were reported in Chicago and New York before the perpetrators moved on to Miami. The police in those cities noted a rise in attacks on working girls around the times of the robberies, so Castillo asked Gina and Trudy to be aware of any attacks on local sex workers. After a young Miami sex worker is beaten by a client, Gina and Trudy take her to the hair salon where she secretly identifies Pete as her attacker. Crockett spots Pete duplicating the keys of one of the salon's customers, a lady of a certain age named Muriel, played by veteran actress Sylvia Miles of Midnight Cowboy fame. With Muriel's cooperation, a massive operation ensues to trail Pete and his fellow home invaders, who include the star of the 1979 cult hit The Warriors, David Patrick Kelly. After a series of snafus, Crockett and Castillo end up foiling an invasion in progress on their own, which kicks off with an impressive display of badassery when Castillo hurls patio furniture through a plate glass window, then jumps in and shoots the home invaders. The episode ends with Muriel taking the detectives out for celebratory champagne. Aware of the way he almost completely whiffed up this assignment, Malone tells Crockett he's handing in his resignation. This deserves 4 flamingos. More than any episode we've seen thus far, the Home Invaders manages to capture a very specific and very interesting mood that many of the better Miami Vice episodes have in common: a pervasive sense of world-weary sadness and exhaustion. It's hinted, rather than outright stated, that whatever crimes the Home Invaders are committing against their victims in the course of the robberies are absolutely horrific. We know cattle prods are involved. It's for this reason that Miami PD is taking an all-hands-on-deck approach to this investigation, and it's also the reason that Castillo is so quietly yet blisteringly furious at Malone for half-assing it. Malone, we see, is a once-skilled detective who's become so burned out by the unrelenting awfulness of his job that he's no longer able to give it as much of himself as he needs to. Over the course of the series, we'll see this sad exhaustion envelop Crockett and Tubbs. Crockett in particular will become a deeply damaged shell of himself as his job repeatedly threatens to destroy him. But that's a long ways away, and a lot will happen between now and then. On the next episode, Crockett will be swept up in a reckless romance that jeopardizes his ability to do his job. Before then, please follow me on Twitter or subscribe to my channel to get regular updates on all things Miami Vice related, and I'll see you later. Goodbye.